There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm your host for today's episode, Travis King at Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Brennan Mason, Chief Marketing Officer at Bridge Connector. Brennan, what is up, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Travis, how you doing?
Awesome, man. It's another lovely day in New York City. How about yourself?
Same thing down here in Nashville. Just getting into fall.
Oh, nice. Love that fall weather, right? The sweaters and the pumpkins and the nice, cool weather.
Love it.
Yeah. So today, you're going to be sharing the importance of market-driven messaging with us, and I'm super excited to hop into that. But before we do, I'd love for you to share with listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do, and also what the team at Bridge Connector are up to these days.
Sure. So I'm Brennan Mason, Chief Marketing Officer at Bridge Connector. And Bridge Connector is a technology company changing the way healthcare communicates. And we do that in a few ways. At our core, we focus on connecting disparate systems in healthcare, which anyone who's in the healthcare industry, and most of us are, because most of us, at least our patients, understand how disconnected the healthcare system is. So what we're doing is offering an easier solution to connect these systems that can be done with no code. So typically, it shortens the time to value a lot more than any other solution that's been out there on the market. And in addition, we do some work on the application side. We have an application that helps to address social determinants of health for patients. So we're starting to find out that a patient's zip code has more to do with their health outcomes than just what treatment they get. So identifying gaps to care, if a patient doesn't have access to nutritious food, if they live in a food desert, if they don't have transportation, and being able to connect them directly with resources that can help. As far as the team is going here right now, we're focused on, I think like a lot of people are, on end of year efforts. We're getting into conference season, which is always fun, still a big thing in healthcare. And so I think everyone's running at about 110% capacity right now.
Got it. Gotta love pushing everything to the max, right?
Yes. They don't hate me yet.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Could you tell us a little bit about, what your take is on market-driven messaging? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how does this work? What's the process look like over for you over at Bridge Connector?
Sure. So at its core, being market-driven and having market-driven messaging basically means looking at the people that are actually in the market, thinking about what problems you're trying to solve for them, find out who is trying to solve those problems, and crafting messaging and positioning statements that speak directly to them. So that is contrast to where a lot of people start, and they start with, what does our product do? What does it do? What is it good at? What does it do better than our competitors? And you start with a very feature functionality-based message. And there will always be a time where you have to talk about the features and functionalities of your product or of your services, but starting with the problem and looking at what the problem actually means to the market and not just what it means to you and your product teams helps craft messaging that's a lot more engaging to the actual market. So Bridge Connector hasn't been around for a very long time. We really started in January of 2018. And one of the things we measure against our competitors is average engagement with our content, whether that's on social media or click-through rates, wherever we're doing promotions. And we benchmark this against our competitors, and we typically see a 3 to 4, sometimes 5x engagement rate versus our competitors. And there's a few reasons we feel like that is, but one of them is primarily being that we speak to the market in a way that the market wants to be spoken to, because we're actually speaking about their problems and we're not just talking about us.
Got it. And let me ask you quickly, like when it comes to different sorts of, creative, like do you guys put out a lot of different creative based on kind of like the personas that you're looking to reach? Like, can you talk to us a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah. So those personas, we try to see what channels and how do they engage with content and what do they like to see. We also challenged a lot of the norms that there were kind of a lot of almost archaic laws written about how you had to market in healthcare. For example, you can't use the color red, you can't use the color black, you can't have any levity. And so we challenged a lot of that in our creative, and also in just our content and our voice and how we write. And we saw, first we wanted to start with a very distinctive style. If you were to look at our style, we have a lot of isometric animations, a lot of icons, and that would typically, 10 years ago in healthcare would be seen as absolutely faux pas. You can't do it. It's too fun. It's too playful. You have to be serious. But we have seen amazing feedback from people directly out in the market and our customers that really enjoy reading our content. They enjoy reading our content because they actually learn something from it. They feel good about it. And it's not just the typical kind of white paper-ish dullness that you typically see in this industry.
Got it. No, thanks so much for going a little bit deeper on that topic for us. That's super helpful. And I feel like a lot of times when you're looking at, especially measuring things against like your competitors or kind of what you see happening in other places or other companies, it's funny to look at and understand that, wow, like we're actually doing something really right because we're seeing 3 to 5x the engagement as other companies in the same space reaching out to potentially the same demographic. So definitely want to highlight that really quickly because 3 to 5x engagement versus your competitors is definitely something to be proud about.
Yeah, and I think there's another part of this that plays into that, and that our messaging is about simplification of the problem. So this problem of integration in healthcare is complicated. It's hard. It's a hard problem to solve. But our competitors, I don't just want to say our competitors because it's really everyone who talks about this problem, whether it's analysts, press, competitors, other vendors, they lean into that complexity and they talk about how impossibly complex this problem is. And before I was at Bridge Connector, I was at another company that was trying to build integrations in healthcare as well. So I've been around this a lot. And I found both from there and in my early days at Bridge Connector, the number one thing we lost to when we lost opportunities was not to a competitor, but we lost to inaction. We lost to status quo. And so my hypothesis there was that people feel too intimidated to take these projects on. It's too scary because they feel like it's too complex. It's too hard. They can't do it. It's too big of a risk. So from when I first came on, I said, I want people to feel smarter. And when they read our content, I want them to feel like this is something they can do, not something that's so complex that they can never do it. And that we've had some good feedback from there. I mean, our number one loss is still to status quo, like I think a lot of people's is, but it's at our core of what we do is creating content that makes our customers feel smarter when they read it and doesn't make them feel like this is too hard to do.
For today's growth story, we'll be talking about Clear Company, a fast-growing talent management platform. Clear Company was acquiring a decent number of users, but they weren't happy with their organic traffic or conversions. Clear Company turned to Directive, the B2B search marketing agency, to help increase their overall search visibility for core keywords in order to drive more organic traffic and bottom-of-the-funnel leads. After identifying the core target keyword and analyzing the first page of Google results, Directive executed a content and digital PR strategy to rank Clear Company number 1 on the first page of Google for the high intent keyword. In just 5 months, that one piece of content generated 27 demo requests and 1,902 referring domains, an all-time high for Clear Company. If you're looking for results like this with your search engine marketing, there's a good chance Directive can help. Visit directiveconsulting.com and get a free customized proposal. All right, let's get back to the show.
Got it. No, that's super helpful. And what are some ways like other B2B marketers can leverage this sort of thinking or mindset in their organizations? Like, did you have like a process that you went through when you kind of were like, okay, it's time to take a risk. I know it might not work, but we're still going to do it anyway. Like, is there any message that you'd want to share with listeners that are thinking about taking, potential risks in their organizations?
Sure. I would say, the more data you can go into it, the more you temper that risk. So just asking your customers what speaks to them, doing what we call market interviews, where we go out to people in the market, customers, people we see at trade shows. And my favorite one are people we've lost business to. So when we lose business, if we lose an opportunity, whether they go with a competitor, they don't do anything, whatever, we send them a survey and we want to understand it's not directly, so we're not asking what could we have done to win your business. We're saying what is valuable to you when you're trying to solve this problem. And sometimes that feedback is almost more valuable than the people who are your customers, because you're figuring out why you're actually losing. And then when you're taking a risk and you're trying to, buck the trend and develop messaging that speaks to the market, you have some backing that you've actually done your homework. And you say, listen, I talked to people out in the market. I've surveyed 200. I've been on the phone with 20 or 50. I have a good guesstimate that this is how we should talk to how we should talk to this market.
Got it. Super helpful. Super helpful. And definitely, I'm curious. Would you mind sharing like a recent story where that kind of, worked out either in your favor or not in your favor? Like either way, that listeners can like latch onto and kind of hear about, oh, wow, like this is how Brennan just implemented this same exact strategy at Bridge Connector.
Sure. So if early days, you don't always have every tool you want. In the early days, it was literally just hitting the phones and just getting on the ground, going to events and talking to people who are in this market and understand it and getting that feedback. And it's very unstructured. It's very nebulous. So sometimes when we're actually going to actually coalesce that information and make it a little bit more structured, it was very challenging. So we implemented an actual formal survey tool that we now use to gather feedback. So we can actually report on this feedback, measure it, rank ourselves, see what people are talking about. And that's been, I mean, it's early stage, very early stage, but it's been very successful so far to help get past some of the nebulousness and the gray area of being very unstructured into growing up a little bit and doing it in a little bit more structured way. And I think there was a lot of pushback at first, particularly with reaching out to people that we lost business to. Feedback was, we shouldn't talk to them. They don't like us. They're never going to respond. But our response rate for closed loss surveys is north of 75%. It's very surprising. Yeah, it's very, well, we do offer, so we offer them a little bit of we say, hey, we'll give you a little gift card. So we give them a little honey to get a response. And we also just persist a little bit. And the way we position it is, it's not a salesperson reaching out. It's not a marketing person reaching out. It's a product person. And say, hi, I'm with the product team. I'm here to make sure our product solves problems for people like you. And to do that, you could really help me out by taking this 5-minute survey and I'll send you a gift card. You'd be very surprised how often people would respond, especially if you ask them more than once. I think a lot of people ask once and then give up. Ask them 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. You'd be surprised with a little bit of persistence and a little bit of honey, what people actually do for you. And most of the time, they're talking about things that they're actually passionate about. They're passionate about solving the problems. That's why they are where they are in their organization. These are typically, executives at healthcare organizations, and they love to let vendors know what they're doing wrong.
That's a fact. I always feel like a lot of times, sometimes you never know what happens, but that one moment that you have to share to give your feedback, a lot of people jump at that. And it's awesome that you guys are being very tactful about it and who's actually outreaching to this person. Because, right, like if you're using a salesperson or a marketer, they're still going to feel like there's some sort of sales or transaction involved in the relationship. Whereas using a product person, it's very, very, how do I say this? It's someone that they're not going to have their guard up against simply because they're just trying to do their job better. And so I find that that's super valuable and such a golden nugget from here. The last section, really quickly, is just kind of like the learn something new part, because one of our core values here at Sweetfish is never stop learning. So unless you have anything to add to that thought, I don't want to jump in too quickly.
No, I think it's fine.
Awesome. So B2B growth has always been about highlighting tactics and strategies B2B leaders can apply to their own teams to achieve explosive growth. So Brennan, we'd love to hear from you. What's a new marketing strategy that your team is currently trying or thinking about in the near future?
This is not new, but it's more of a revival of an old. We have a couple, I call them experimental because, these results are measured over a long term, direct mail campaigns that we are very, very excited about, which I know might be surprising. But we're kind of taking direct mail and flipping it on its head. And what we're doing is carving off target accounts. This is usually part of an account-based marketing effort, and sending things that are unignorable, something so interesting that they have to pick it up, they have to open it, they have to engage with it. And we'll do this before a conference. For example, we have a conference coming up where we'll be sending a big travel-themed box with kind of a fake passport where the recipient there's a few stops on the passport, and they can go around to these stops and get stamps and get passport stamps. And if they get 3 out of 6 passport stamps, then they get entered to win something, or they get a little piece of swag. And these stops or these passport stamps are watch a demo, join us for dinner, retweet something on social media. And we've seen just a hugely surprising amount of engagement and excitement around this direct mail. But it's kind of taking direct mail and just flipping it on its head a little bit.
I love that. It's almost like a little mini game.
It is. It's fun. It's fun because it's very rare that you get something mailed to you, especially at the office, that you're genuinely excited about and that is fun and breaks up your day a little bit.
That's a fact. Most things that you get mailed to you at your office actually are nothing. Most people don't get mail at their office now that I think about it. Yeah, man. No, thanks so much for sharing that golden nugget, because I think that's a strategy or a tactic that a lot of people can definitely apply, especially when they're thinking about conferences and how to differentiate their companies in the market compared to their competitors. And I definitely think it's super helpful and super valuable for people to, take away and just think about next time they're going to a conference, how can you engage your, prospects and your top prospects at that in a playful way? Not just hey, I know you're going to be at the conference. Like, would you want to talk or connect? How about what if we played a game together? Like, yep. We have a little mini group of people that are also doing the same passport sticker collecting activity, and it would be cool if you guys did it together. Like, that would be fun. You make friends with people you don't know from other companies, but at the same time, you're also actively doing things that involve human connection, which is, in my eyes, it's one of the priceless formulas that you can definitely use to bring prospects to build more trust with you. So Brennan, this has been, such a great and impactful conversation. So thanks so much, number one, for hopping on. And if listeners want to stay connected with you or follow up to ask any other questions on this topic, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can always visit bridgeconnector.com. Check out some of the stuff we're creating, particularly our resources area. I know I talked a lot about our content today. And if anyone ever wants to reach out to me directly, they can always email bmason@bridgeconnector.com. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Thanks, Brennan. We really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks, Travis. I appreciate it.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.